My 40 meters, wife's 35F, financial philosophy causing conflict. TL, doctor, I got made redundant, money is tight and wife wants to spend. Issue is causing unpleasantness as she thinks I should spend on her despite the low bank balance. Hi everyone, this is my first post on this Reddit. I'm a 40 meters living with my 35F wife and our 2 kids. We are currently based in her home country in former Soviet Union after we moved here from my job last year. Unfortunately, I was made redundant in September and I haven't had regular employment since, just some short-term consulting and online jobs. Financially, we have almost depleted our savings and my payoff. Things are not looking great for the next month or 2, but I will have some temporary work towards the end of May. My wife has not found any work despite the situation, and this irritates me. I have also suffered from depression and stress badly during this time, but I have always gritted my teeth and pushed to try and find solutions, but I don't think she is trying at all. I am exhausted and I wish with all my heart that she would relieve some of this burden. End of backstory. The issue is that my wife has rather irrational views about money. Due to the financial situation, I have stopped buying gifts and luxuries. That said, I have kept paying for her studies. I don't think we should be spending money carelessly until we have a proper regular income. In her eyes, she says that this is me neglecting my role as a husband. She claims that I do not pay enough attention to her as a woman. I have tried to explain that I need help with ensuring we have a healthier financial position, and that I am also not in the best physical and psychological condition. I need her to be on my side, and not against me. These unrealistic demands are taking a toll on me, so much so that I am becoming very unattracted to her now. It's difficult to want someone who has no interest in ensuring you are in a good way. Today pushed me too far. I explained that until I receive my consulting fee, we are unable to do more than the bare minimum. Her view, which I find illogical, was that men who give their women more in terms of attention and money find that it is returned in a bigger way. Basically, if I give her what she wants and I will get richer as a reward from the universe. This was coupled with a demand for her to travel to a mountain resort for her to rest. To me this is insanity. We are at the point where we can just about put food on the table and a roof over our heads, but no luxuries. Paying for holiday for her only strikes me as selfish and unfair behavior. In her eyes, it's my duty to provide this, and if I don't, I should just leave her to be happy and she will find someone who will. I don't think this is a real threat, but it is painful and childish. The one thing stopping me throwing everything is access to my kids. If we didn't have such amazing kids, I'd be gone. So, I ask you, am I being overly harsh in my interpretation of a situation, or is my spouse acting like a spoiled child? Maybe I'm just being overly sensitive, or maybe this is completely screwed up. It'd be good to have some feedback. Thank you. Your wife has such a very specifically Russian view of gender roles. I'm sorry, source, I'm a Russian immigrant in USA, and while my family came from too much poverty to have those views, I know plenty of formerly well-off Russian women who still believe this nonsense. I don't have any advice. I'm sorry, but I feel for you. I came here to say that your wife's view of gender roles sounds very Russian/Soviet. I'm from there myself, but lots of posters beat me to it. To directly answer your question, yes, she is acting like a spoiled child. Responsibilities and necessities come first, then luxuries. I broke up with my last, long-term partner because he could not grasp this concept of financial responsibility. The rest she gets at a mountain resort won't amount to much if you two end up on the street after it due to no money. You are 100% in the right, but your challenge will be to get your wife to see it, because it sounds like you come from two very different worldviews. She's acting like a delusional spoiled child. What is it that she thinks you should be doing to make there be more money to spend on her? Does she work? Does she understand basic math? Not working and unwilling to grasp simple reality. Apparently my investment in her happiness is returned by the universe many times over. Sounds like a whacked out hippie pyramid scheme to me. You have a very sensible attitude in continuing to pay for her studies so she can be self-sufficient. You are a long-term thinker and you know she will need this especially to help support herself and the kids if you guys do end up separating. Love and attention is not spending money on her or showing off to your social peers. If you're careful now you can get back on your feet and the luxuries will come in time. But I'm not sure you will feel then like treating her to them. I'm sorry you're in this situation. I hope you find a job again soon, but you need to really think about whether or not you have love in your marriage, if she sees you as an ATM, and what do you see her as now you've seen her behavior in tough times. We had rough times before, and we dealt with them. However, I think her inability to take responsibility for things is at the core of this all. It's easier to blame others and take from others than to sort your own act out. I'm a strategist by profession, so I have been looking at long games. I don't do short-term plans as they often leave you in a mess in long term. For me, playing safe now means we have a longer period to find safety. Spending means time is limited, and increases pressure on me to take any offer, which is dangerous. This was coupled with a demand for her to travel to a mountain resort for her to rest. To me this is insanity. I agree. We are at the point where we can just about put food on the table and a roof over our heads, but no luxuries. Paying for holiday for her only strikes me as selfish and unfair behavior. Agree. In her eyes, it's my duty to provide this, and if I don't, I should just leave her to be happy and she will find someone who will. Absolute rubbish. This isn't the 1950s anymore. She wants to dine out, or travel out, on someone else's dime. You should divorce her and let her look for a man whose attitude is equally as outdated. Unfortunately, attitude in her country is a bit like that. However, she cherry picks the parts which suit her, and chooses the Western parts that suit her. She needs to wake up quickly. My 30F mom, 55F, innocently wants me to rejoin a religion/cult and doesn't understand why it's a threat to everything I love. Too long didn't read, kept relationship with mom after leaving the family cult. She doesn't know the extent of my distaste for them, and I'm afraid honesty will kill our relationship for good. I, 30F, was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I doubt grew exponentially in my 20s, and I informed my mom that I did not want to attend meetings anymore. Surprisingly, my mom accepted it calmly and we have maintained a good relationship. This is not a typical JW parent reaction, but I'm thankful for it. We had a lot of family drama going on, so I was not baptized as a teen like most JW children are. This is a critical loophole that allows my mother to still have contact with me. If I had been baptized and lived my current life, I would have been disfellowshipped immediately and lost all contact with my entire family and social network. Honestly, this loophole offends me, but I won't explore that here. Today, she is still a JW and I do not have any religious feelings, nor desire to have any. My husband and his family identify as Christian, coolest, kindest Christians I've ever known. Unlike JWs, I now celebrate holidays and birthdays with them. We've maintained our relationship by avoiding talking about our differences at length. I avoid calling her on days that I know she has meetings, church, and I try not to mention our holiday plans for too long. I try very hard to avoid any indication that I do not approve of children being raised the way I was. I don't resent my childhood, but if she thinks I do, she will bear to ride guilt, and I don't want that for her. Even though I now believe JWs to be a high control group, or cult-like, it is very real to her and she genuinely believes their work saves lives. She likely has doubts that her children will survive Armageddon, and I can imagine how heartbreaking that must be to her. I don't want to hurt my mother for loving me and wanting me to be saved. Currently, my mom invited me to participate in the JW Memorial of Christ's Death, their only sacred annual holiday. She has not done this for years, and I thought we had an understanding that I did not want any invitations ever. I set that boundary with my divorced father a long time ago. I immediately called her, but I was so upset I almost couldn't talk. I tried to explain why I was upset, but I probably wasn't making much sense. She apologized and was upset that she had unintentionally caused distress. I knew she only meant well, but how could she not know the implications of that invitation? Nothing in my life aligns with JW teachings. It would mean, no more contact with husband's family, no holidays, strained relationship with husband, unevenly yoked, must adopt homophobic views, dropping out of college, abandon career, cutting out all of my amazing friends, altering every decision I make, books, movies, music, accepting death rather than a blood transfusion, accepting women as inferior beings to men, being told to work part-time so I have more time for spiritual activities, committing myself to an organization that systemically allows abusers to thrive. Our phone conversation shifted after we mutually agreed that 10 p.m. was not a good time to get into it, but now I'm left with a choice. We could rug sweep and forget it happened, moving on with our opposite lives, or we could talk it out. Talking it out risks me being labeled as an apostate, extra bad, might require her to shun me after all. But rug sweeping feels like a band-aid that leaves me with the feeling that my mom doesn't actually accept my life as is. What do I do? Avoid offending her and hope for the best in the future roadblocks, or try to show her how destructive JWs are and why the invitation was offensive to me? I am also the child of Jehovah's Witnesses and I have been estranged from my JW dad for years. Like no contact in years because he considers me apostate. Like you, I qualify for the never baptized loophole, but in my case it went on for too long and they eventually cut me out. What you need to know is that there was this huge push this year on the JWs to invite everyone they knew to Memorial this year. You probably remember how they would do their little campaigns and hound everyone to whatever the pet project is. So this year it was invite worldly folks to the memorial. What you got from your mom was basically a form letter. I haven't heard jack from my dad in 5 years and I got a text inviting me to the memorial a week ago. I was also upset about it initially, but then I realized he's being a robot like he's always been. Nothing to see here. After taking a day to collect myself, I wrote back, Jesus has been dead an awfully long time. I'll pass. Obviously, your feelings are totally valid, but I thought this story might make you feel a little less singled out by your mom. Also come visit r/exju. I got an email from a girl I haven't spoken to in 20 years, trying to get me to look at their propaganda on the website. Even tried to use my dead mom to lure me in. I replied telling her it was sad they still believe this mess, and that it made me sad that they disguise hate by saying it's love. Such a mess of a cult. I think you need to reevaluate your goals for this relationship, and possibly talk it over with a therapist so you can get some support through this decision making and its fallout. Your mother will likely never understand how destructive JWs would be to your life and the things you value. That's painful, but it's a fact you need to work with. Question I'd be asking myself now is, does my mother now understand these sorts of invitations are unacceptable? As intense as your emotional reaction here was, and valid as it was, it seems to me that all that is really needed is for your mother to return to observing the boundary you had set, and she had previously honored. That's not that big a lift, and it sounds like your mother probably got the message. It can be scary or even traumatic when you have to reiterate and hold to a boundary you thought was long ago set in stone, but it's actually normal for people we love to push our boundaries, and it's often not malicious either. It's not rug sweeping to decide you've been heard and that someone can be expected to honor your boundary in the future. That's successful communication. That means they got the message. If you're concerned your mother hasn't heard your boundary, then say it again, not with a focus on your reasons or her reasons, but a pure focus on the boundary you need her to observe. No discussion of JW with you. You value your relationship with your mother, but any discussion of JW is extremely hurtful to you, and to maintain the relationship you two have you need her to refrain from mentioning JW to you at all. Feels like I'm going through a second marriage. 34F, 40M. Too long didn't read. Boyfriend of 3 years asked me to marry him. No ring, no proposal, no announcements or fanfare of any kind. This is his second marriage but my first. Struggling to communicate to him why it's bothering me that he's so indifferent about this process. I'm 34F, he's 40M. We've been together for 3 years. I've never been married, he's divorced. About 2 months ago, he asked me if I wanted to get married. This was pretty noteworthy, because much earlier in the relationship we discussed marriage, and at the time he was pretty adamant about never getting married again. But he still asked. We were watching sometime on TV, tipsy at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and he just blurted it out. I said yes, I'd marry him in a heartbeat. Keep in mind that I've never been through this before, but everything has felt weird and off. I was expecting a proposal to come after that, but it never did. I finally asked him if he was planning on proposing, and he said I already did. When I asked if there would be a ring, he basically said I wasn't planning on it. But you can go get one if you want. I haven't told anyone in my personal life because it feels so nebulous right now. He asked me when I wanted to go down to the courthouse to sign the paperwork. I asked if he wanted to have a wedding at all, even just a backyard party or something. He was again very jaded on the topic. Not really. I dropped $10,000 on my first wedding, wasn't worth it. I figured we could just go sign the paperwork. You could have your sister come along to be a witness if you want. We can go get dinner afterwards. It's been bothering me, but I've been trying to figure out why. I've never been one to dream of my wedding day, and I've always kind of rolled my eyes at women who flaunt their big engagement rings in expensive cheesy photos. I don't need all that excess. But still, something feels off. After some deep thinking, I realized what's bothering me is that this is his second wedding, so he's treating it like a second wedding. It's all very been there, done that. He's making it as utilitarian as possible. I haven't asked much about his first wedding, but I know it was in a church and he said his ex-wife wanted it to be a big wedding so they had more guests than he wanted. He still has some wedding leftovers at his house, like a wine box with their names engraved and leftover favors, and his handwritten vows. So I know he had a more traditional first wedding. It's got my mind racing. Did he get down on one knee and propose to her? Did he spend time picking out a ring with her in mind? Or did his ex-wife have to drag him through the motions like I feel like I'm doing? It makes me feel inadequate. I don't really want a traditional wedding or proposal or ring, but I just want to not question if he's jaded at this point. If he did it once, what's wrong with me that he's not doing it again? Tried to express this to him a few days ago, but I ended up crying and I don't think I was communicating well. I tried to tell him that it feels like I'm being dragged through a second marriage without having had a first. He told me I don't understand why you're upset. You can still have a first marriage. How am I preventing that? Am I being irrational? Is it normal for the woman to feel like they're dragging the guy through marriage planning steps like this? How can I express to him what I want, which is just for him to act like this is an important milestone in his life? Should add that besides this, our relationship is excellent. We communicate well and he's understanding when I bring things up. This has been such a weird experience, because he doesn't seem to understand why I'm upset, so he has no idea how to fix it.